Chapter 9: Puerto Ricans and Mexican Americans, Identity and Incorporation. In Chapter 9, you will learn about the second largest Hispanic subgroup, the Puerto Ricans, their identity and diversity, the colonialization of Puerto Rico, the cultural assimilation and important matters of language, some legal battles and secondary and primary structural assimilation patterns, as well as successes of both groups, the Puerto Ricans and the Mexican Americans. According to the 2000 census, Latinos comprise 12.5% of the total U.S. population, and they make up a larger portion of the population than African Americans. Historically, the Latino population is concentrated in the southwestern United States, especially in California and Texas. Cities such as Los Angeles, Houston, San Antonio, and El Paso have large concentrations of Latinos. Mexican immigrants seem to be moving into states that have not had large Mexican origin populations. The 2000 census cites growth in cities such as Atlanta, Greensboro, Orlando, Las Vegas, and even Nashville, just to name a few. The second largest subgroup of Hispanics are the Puerto Ricans. Puerto Ricans are citizens. Their immigration or their migrations from the island to the mainland and back is unrestricted. Consequently, they maintain their cultural ties to the island. In the 1940s, the Census Bureau attempted to count people who listed Spanish as their mother tongue, and it was problematic. The racial categorization included people from all Spanish-speaking countries. In the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, the approach used was to use surnames. Lists of Spanish surnames were drawn up, and Mexican Americans and Puerto Ricans were identified as white persons of Spanish surname. The Mexican American and the Puerto Rican population have, over the years, preferred to maintain their culture. Mexican immigrants and recent arrivals from Puerto Rico have maintained their Spanish language. The Spanish language is likely to survive in the United States more than any other foreign language. We believe that the longer Puerto Ricans and Mexican immigrant children live in the United States, the more likely they are to lose their language to become monolingual English speakers. We also know that Mexican second-generation students are the most likely to preserve their language. Females are better at maintaining the language than the males, and they're fluent in both English and Spanish. The existence of high Spanish-speaking population in many cities has helped the Spanish language media soar to popularity. Univision holds the #1 spot even among the 3 national broadcasting companies in the United States. Maintaining the native language has been a controversial issue with bilingual education. 2 positions from the debate frame the debate of bilingual education: the Anglo-conformity and the cultural pluralist models. The Anglo-conformists want the schools to teach English and substitute it for the native language. The pluralists contradict that the schools should recognize that kids learn best in their native language and that they should protect the language and culture of the immigrant groups to preserve a strong nation. In Texas, around the 1850s, laws were passed that declared English must be the principal language in public schools. Many Mexican children came to school only speaking Spanish. Using standard set of courses, books, and materials that were only in English with these kids was ridiculous because they could not understand them. Mexican migrant workers were ostracized and set apart. Most all of them worked in the fields. Organizations like LULAC took up legal battles asking for more Mexican teachers, even taking legal action in 1946, such as the Mendez versus Westminster School District, claiming that Mexican students were being denied their constitutional rights by being separated and forced to attend Mexican schools. The judge ruled that the 14th Amendment rights of the children were being violated. This case set the stage for the 1954 Supreme Court ruling of Brown versus Board of Education in Topeka. I remember being in my first grade class in Texas and not being allowed to speak Spanish. If we did, we were subjected to spanking, and I even witnessed classmates who soiled themselves. They wet their pants because they could not go to ask to go to the restroom. Other legal battles in 1974, Lau versus Nichols set the stage for bilingual education. This dispute that legislation was needed was because there were over 300 languages spoken in the United States. There has been political pressure against bilingual education. In 1998, the California voters passed Proposition 227, which ordered all children in public schools shall be taught English by being taught in English. In the text, they explore assimilation among Mexican Americans and Puerto Ricans. Let's take a look at the educational aspect. Mexican American and Puerto Rican youths still have high rates of dropping out, or maybe in some cases pushed out of school before reaching high school graduation. We also see that females generally do better than their male counterparts. Most males are required to repeat grades at the elementary level. Of those that were tracked in a study conducted by the authors from 1989 to 1992, 100 Mexican adolescents that were at risk were followed. Only 19 of the 100 graduated. What they found was that earning a high school diploma was more complicated for them. They were persuaded by peer pressure, strong parent support, effective school programs and policies, as well as high educational values by both the family and the student. As we explore Hispanic representation in colleges and universities, Hispanic students complete college at a lower rate than the general student population. As we look at marital assimilation, three main findings stand out. The rate of outmarriages for Mexican Americans is low in some places than others. Over time, there has been a steady increase of outmarriages, and Native Mexican Americans are more likely to marry out than those of mixed parentage. They, in turn, are more likely to marry out than those born in Mexico. We can say that Mexican Americans are slowly moving towards marital assimilation. A considerable amount of intermarriage is taking place. The text addresses some ideological issues throughout the book. Both Mexican Americans and Puerto Ricans have some successes. Maintaining and developing their own heritage without giving up their cultural, social, and marital traditions seems clearly to be acknowledged by many ethnic Americans. The goal of ideal pluralism has truly not been attained because to do that they would have to give up their language. From the Mexican Americans and Puerto Ricans' view, they consider the insistence that they give up Spanish and undergo full cultural assimilation by substitution to be an example of cultural imperialism, which creates an unequal relationship between the dominant group, and in this case, the Mexican Americans and the Puerto Ricans. Consequently, they have not abandoned their culture. They appear to be more separated in their friendships and marital patterns. An area of great importance has been the socio-economic position of the Mexican Americans and the Puerto Ricans. There's a big difference in the incomes of Anglo-Americans and Mexican-American workers. When pushed into dead-end jobs, minorities have ended up in the cheap labor market where you find backbreaking seasonal work and work that Anglo workers refuse to complete. There will be no significant improvement in their economic circumstances at this rate. At the end of this chapter, here are some questions to think about. In what ways are Mexican Americans and Puerto Ricans similar, and in what ways are they different? Why is language an important assimilation issue for most Hispanic groups? And finally, why have some Mexican immigrants and Puerto Rican parents rejected bilingual education?